My name is Dina Nur Satti, and I'm a Sudanese and Somali ceramic artist based in Brooklyn. So I'm a ceramic artist that's very much interested in studying the ritual use of objects, primarily from Sudan. My family's from Nubia, and so we have a very ancient history, being that Kerma pottery is known as some of the oldest pottery in Africa. And so my inquiry also is connecting that culture and that tradition and ritual use of objects with the greater African continent. And so I really enjoy finding similarities in the ways that we interact with the material of clay in the use of ritual. It also gives me a framework with which I can interact with this idea of reconnecting to our heritage before a lot of the colonial history came in. And that is both European colonization as well as colonization through the spread of Islam. I think I really deeply believe in the power of somatics, also epigenetics, the fact that our bodies retain information through different generations. And so when you look at the material of clay, it's one of the most ancient forms of making. So I tell people often that it's a universal equalizer because everyone most likely has an ancestor that's worked with pottery. And so for me, it really awakens an old wisdom and an old learning where through disconnecting from your rational mind and going more into what people call an alpha brainwave state, you can almost go into this place of reawakening knowledge. And so through the movement of working with earth, people say if you're working with clay from the land that you come from, your ancestors probably have been in it as well. So you're directly working with ancestral material. And so for me, it's this material that holds very, very deep wisdom of the earth. And it's a medium that I think commands a lot of respect, and it's also a medium that's a story keeper and a wisdom keeper, because when you excavate any site, it's the pottery that survives. So interestingly enough, I've been wanting this kind of residency for a very long time. I think because I'm such a research-based artist, sometimes the realities of being an artist in a city like New York, you don't really have a lot of time to dedicate to your research because of the projects and the deadlines and all of that. I had always imagined this possibility of working directly with a museum, and so it always felt like in my career this far-reaching dream. And to actually have this opportunity come in the way that it has come, at the time that it has come, historically, given the war in Sudan that has broken out in the last couple of years, it just feels like a really significant moment for something like this to be happening. One of the things that I was really interested in was twofold. It was looking at plant use in ancient Nubia and connecting it to the ways that we also utilize plants in ritual in the modern day, so that we're able to kind of have this ongoing connecting thread through time, but also rerouting not only Egyptian but also Sudanese culture into the African continent by exploring some of the bordering cultures. When we look at the way that the Nile travels, which was such an important way in which civilization developed in the Nile Delta and the Nile Valley actually, it has its source in Uganda as well as Ethiopia. And when you look at the migration patterns as well, you can see that some of the traditions started to come up from southern and eastern Africa into Nubia and then into Egypt. And I think in the process of what we intend with this project is to almost decolonize the narrative around ancient Egypt and ancient Nubia, and is to see that those cultures didn't really spring out of nowhere, that they really came up from some of the more ancient civilizations that might have even influenced the ways that they have developed their culture. We were just discussing earlier that there hasn't been an opportunity to engage the local population when these pieces are being excavated in the beginning. And a lot of the people who actively supported and in the process of excavating that might have had a lot of knowledge around why these pieces mattered as well as how they're used in ritual have completely been disregarded. So I think that this is also a really important way that museums can start to engage the population from which these objects come, so that we, with the resources that we have, even though we are people from the diaspora and we're coming to terms with our own identities within that we have a lot more access to understanding how these objects might have been used as well, and we have the elders and the resources to be able to bring stories forward that might help contextualize these objects.